Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. My name is Julian, and today we're going to be talking about the fantasy overview of the Los Angeles Kings for the 2021 season. Before we get started, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's jump right into LA's lines. On that top line, it should be Yafalo, Kopitar, and Dustin Brown. On that second line, it should be Kempe, Vilardi, and Furk. On the third line, it should be newly signed Athanasiou, Anderson, and Jeff Carter. On the power play, it should be Dustin Brown, Anze Kopitar, Adrian Kempe, Yafalo, and Drew Doughty. On that second power play, it should be Jeff Carter, Vilardi, Athanasiou, Furk, and Sean Walker. Alright guys, so let's jump right into our do not draft list. So first on my do not draft list, guys, is Dustin Brown. And Dustin Brown's kind of getting older. He's not as good as he once was, and even in his prime, he was not that great to begin with. Now, last year he got 35 points in 66 games, which is okay. But for a guy getting consistent top power play time, top line time, that's not that great, and his numbers won't really get that much better. And for a season with only 58 games, you're going to need at least 34 points, and he's not going to get that for you if he continues at the same pace. I'd rather stay away from Dustin Brown at the range he's being drafted in. So next on my do not draft list, guys, is Quinton Byfield. And no, I'm not a hater like a lot of these people watching the World Juniors right now are. Quinton Byfield was the second overall pick in this past draft, and I think he's going to be a great player. I just don't think he's going to be really NHL ready this season. The reason for that is he's almost a full year younger than Tim Stützle and Alexis Lafreniere. For that reason, I think he's just going to take a little bit longer to develop. And that's okay. He's going to be a great player when he does. But I would not draft him this season. So next on my draft list, guys, is Andreas Athanasiou. And no, I don't think he's a bad player. He's a really speedy guy, and he'll be able to do a lot for LA. I just don't think he's going to get that many points, especially where I project him playing. He's probably going to end up playing on that third line with Jeff Carter and probably Elias Anderson. It's not the flashiest line. They're not going to get that many points, and for this reason, I'd rather stay away from Athanasiou in the coming fantasy draft. Last on my do not draft list is Jeff Carter, and I really shouldn't have to tell you this. He's gotten old. He's not as good as he used to be, unfortunately, as much as he used to be a super, super great player. Alright, well now that we're done with our do not draft list, let's jump right into our draft list. And first on the list is Anze Kopitar. Anze Kopitar managed 62 points in 70 games, which is pretty good, and he's currently being drafted at 89. Personally, I'd probably grab Krug or Heiskanen in that range, but it's not a terrible pick at 89 if you really need a centerman. Kopitar is a very consistent player, and he won't disappoint you. He probably won't surprise you with a 100-point season either, but he's a pretty safe pick at 89. So next on my draft list, guys, is defenseman Drew Doughty. And yeah, Drew Doughty's getting a little bit older too, but he is just still such a great defenseman. He managed 35 points in 67 games last year and looked pretty good doing it. He also hits a decent amount, so for those of you in Bangers leagues, Doughty's a pretty good pick. I don't mind drafting Doughty at the range he's currently being drafted at. So next on my draft list, guys, is Jonathan Quick, currently being drafted at 264. I kind of like this as a sneaky value pick because LA is a much improved team, and they're in a weaker division as well. So I think LA is going to get quite a few more wins than they did last year. And yeah, Jonathan Quick may not start all the games. I think they're going to give Cal Peterson a good amount of starts, but it should still be Quick getting at least half the starts, if not more. And I think there's a little bit of sneaky value there at 264. Obviously, I'd rather you draft goalies a little bit earlier. Obviously, you'll get better goalies. But if you need a goalie in that range, you could do worse. Next on my draft list, guys, is my must draft of the video, and that's Gabe Vilardi. He's one of LA's top prospects. You saw him come into the league last year and get 7 points in the 10 games that he played. He looked really, really good. I expect his hot play to continue. I expect him to center that second line alongside his AHL line mate, who he has so much good chemistry with, Martin Furk. And I just expect him to have a really good season. If you guys want to pick him with your last pick of the draft, or if you're in a really, really deep draft, and you're actually going that deep, go ahead and grab Gabe Vilardi because he could pay off in a huge way. Last but not least, guys, on my draft list, and you don't necessarily have to draft this guy, right? It's only in the deepest of leagues that I actually recommend drafting this guy, but that's Alex Yafalo. And Yafalo is playing on that top line with Anze Kopitar, and he's looked better each and every passing year. So by that logic, Yafalo should look pretty good again this year, and he had some pretty modestly decent numbers last year, with 43 points in 70 games, which is not bad. Honestly, if you're not in the deepest of leagues, you're not going to draft Alex Yafalo, but he's a great pickup to stream on weeks that LA has a favorable matchup. So that's it for my draft list, guys. Let's jump right into my keep your eye out for list. And these are guys that I don't think you should necessarily draft, but you should look at training camps and then look at the start of the season to see how these guys are doing and where they're positioned in the lineup. Because depending on where they play or how they're positioned in the lineup, they might have some sneaky value. First on this list, guys, is the goaltender Cal Petersen. And I think there's a legitimate chance that Cal Petersen takes over that #1 job this year. I don't think he's going to get more than 50% of the starts because they still like Jonathan Quick, but I think there is a good chance that he actually does play 50% of the starts this year. He's their young guy, he's their future, and there's no reason for LA to play him less than that. They need to get him starts, they need to get him some experience, and in a couple of years, LA might be a Stanley Cup competitor again. They just got to give this guy some confidence. For him, I wouldn't draft him, but I would see how often he's playing in the first week or two of the season, and if he's getting half the starts, I don't mind scooping him up at all if you're weak on goaltenders. Next on this list, guys, is former Detroit Red Wing and the hardest slap shot winner in the AHL, which was actually harder than the hardest slap shot in the NHL, Martin Frk. And Frk played super well in the AHL alongside Gabriel Velarde, and I expect them to play together again this year in LA. And they'll probably be playing on that second line, so they'll get plenty of ice time and some real opportunities to shine. Of course, I want to make sure that he actually does play on that second line before I start drafting him, because there's a decent chance that he might not make the lineup as well. So let's just take a look at that and make sure that he does end up making the lineup and end up playing on that second line with Gabe Velarde, because he really should crack that lineup because they did play so well together last year. Last but not least on this list, guys, is Sean Walker. And Sean Walker is a defenseman on LA. He's not super well known, but he's their next best offensive defenseman after Doughty. So if Doughty were to get injured, Sean Walker is a guy you have to scoop up right away. And I'm telling you that because you shouldn't be drafting Sean Walker. He doesn't hold a whole lot of value. But if Doughty gets injured, he's a guy you go on the waiver wire and you grab him right away, because he'll provide a lot of value because they'll be playing him on that top power play instead of Doughty. So if you're really competitive, guys, and you probably are if you're watching this video, download the Score app if you haven't already. And go to Drew Doughty and turn notifications on for him. If he gets injured, you'll know right away. If that happens, you scoop up Sean Walker and he'll have a pretty big amount of value. Alright guys, you've reached the end of the video. I really appreciate you guys watching all the way through. Leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.